bunch of audience questions because I'm sure there's many. But so just tell us real quickly, what has Trump gotten right? Obviously, depending on who you ask, there's obviously NAFTA negotiations are ongoing. They don't look great as of today. There's this progress in North Korea, potentially some sort of agreement that comes out of China. What has he gotten right? What has he gotten right?
I thought a lot about this. I thought a lot about it on the campaign trail, actually. And I think about it more and more because it's not the received wisdom in D.C., but it's certainly receivable wisdom at this point, that Trump is doing a great job in foreign policy. David Brooks just wrote a column a few days ago essentially making this point, and I think we're going to hear more of this as we head into the summit and the like. So just a few thoughts. The first is, those of us who work on foreign policy, have worked on foreign policy and national security in D.C., I do think that we got a little bit fat and happy in our assumptions and the way we thought about things. And that's in part because there was basically a bipartisan consensus on the basic elements of American foreign policy, and so we never really had to rigorously test them. Now, I wouldn't call Trump a guy who's rigorously testing them, but sometimes throwing a stink bomb into the middle makes you all have to jump up and look around and check your pockets. And, in a way, I think that has been a productive thing for us to have to look at. I was on the campaign trail in 2016, and I made the mistake at an event in Ohio of using this phrase, the liberal international order, and which I use a lot because that's what we say in foreign policy. And a guy came up to me afterwards, and he said, I don't know what that is, the liberal international order, but I don't like any of those three words. So I thought, okay, let me give that some thought and figure out. So, but I would say the challenge that Trump has put to us, which I don't have an answer for yet, but I think everybody should be thinking hard about, is as the relative power of the United States, economic and otherwise, declines vis-a-vis other countries on the international stage, do we need to start thinking in more competitive terms? Do we need to say, we got to push harder on deals than we did before? It used to be that we could absorb a lot of the costs of leadership because A, we had a certain cushion for it, B, nobody else really had the wherewithal to step up in the same way. But now, do we need to maintain Trump has a very zero-sum mindset, which I completely reject. I think we have to think in positive sum terms about how we're better, safer, and stronger when others are better, safer, and stronger. But does that have to come with a little bit more of a competitive edge? I think it's a reasonable question. Now, there are ways to do that that are not bullying and browbeating and throwing your allies under the bus. But for me, it's something I'm struggling with as I think things through. And then the other big thing that I'm struggling with is how does what America does over there connect back to the lived experience of Americans at home? And I will tell you that around the Situation Room table, we did not frequently ask that question. Because national security dealt with national security, the domestic economic folks dealt with it. And in a way, you guys in commerce were in both conversations. It was like you're in the national security conversations with we national security types, and we didn't really put these conversations together and say, how do we have an integrated, unified, grand strategy for our country that's fundamentally about putting American working people, middle class, front and center, and what would that actually look like? Again, this is not something Trump has articulated in any kind of useful or linear way, but from Bernie Sanders on the left and Donald Trump on the right, you have a kind of elemental critique that has to be considered and taken seriously, and I'm trying to do that as well.
Well,